Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer of 2023. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2023. You can either join us virtually June 12th through the 14th, or come visit Cincinnati on July 27th and 28th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Aloha, I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We bring you the tips and tricks to help you in your everyday work as an instructional coach, or whatever they call it in your school district.
So hopefully you're going to leave this episode with us today feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
And our role as coaches is an interesting one. We work with the administration, educators, and even students, but it sometimes can be complicated to show your value and importance to a district. How can you prove your worth without being overbearing with the staff that you work with? This is especially true in a building or district that you are in if it's very, very small. So we got 2 coaches with us here today that work in smaller school buildings and single school buildings. And we're going to talk with them about how they work with coaches, but they, do it in a way where they're not always hanging out with the teachers and things like that. So why don't we go ahead and introduce them? So we have Brooke Conklin with us. Brooke is the Assistant Director of Coaching Programs at Forward Edge. She oversees the Forward Edge Coach Mentorship Program and organized the EDU Coach Network, a professional learning network for instructional coaches. Prior to her current role, she served as instructional design coach for schools in the Southwest Ohio area. She planned and led sessions for Google for Education Certified Coaching Programs webinar series last year, and authored curriculum for the program pertaining to the use of Google Classroom to promote professional learning. Her passion for professional learning has resulted in the planning and execution of multiple professional book studies and mentorship of other coaches. So welcome in, Brooke.
Thanks so much, Justin. It's good to be here today.
Yeah,
thanks.
Welcome back, Brookie. And I have the pleasure of introducing our second guest, Anna Marie Reinhardt. Loyal listeners will be sad that landed on me to introduce this time, not Justin.
I said it in my head.
I know you did. I just can't even attempt to imitate it. But Anna Marie is an instructional design coach at Forward Edge. Prior to stepping into her current role, she worked as an intervention specialist with elementary, middle, and high school students. During that time, she taught all core subjects and worked with a wide variety of learners. Anna Marie is a Google certified educator, trainer, and coach, and serves as a mentor coach on her team here at Forward Edge. As a coach, Anna Marie's goal is to connect with others so that everyone feels included, supported, and valued. And we are super excited to have you back on the pod here with us today, Anna Marie.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
I hope if people see you out in the real world at conference or something, they just say, "Oh, it's Anna Marie." Maybe you don't want that, so sorry if that happens.
No, listen, I hope it happens now.
It's going to. Okay, so let's start off and provide our listeners with just a little bit of context for your school settings today to kind of set the stage for the balance we're looking here. So if you could both just take a minute and kind of just describe, how many staff and students and buildings do you support?
All right. I'll start off. So I am in a pre-K to 8 building with about 330 students, and we have around 45 staff members, which 25 of those are classroom teachers. So I included reading specialists and support staff as well.
Yeah, and I kind of similarly am in a K-8 building, all one building, just separate hallways that kind of separate everyone. We have under 600 students, K-8, and then there are 29 teachers that I support, and then a handful of support staff as well. My environment is a little bit different. I guess not the environment, but my placement is a little bit different than Anna Marie as far as coaching support goes. Anna Marie is at her site 4 days out of 5 a week. And then I'm only at my teeny tiny campus 1 day a week. So every Tuesday.
Yeah. And just to provide a little bit more context, Anna Marie's building is a part of a very large school district.
Yes.
But this building is kind of off on its own a little bit,
Yeah.
Geographically speaking, compared to some of the other buildings. But you don't really do any very minimal district level like support and coordination. You're just focused on the one building. And Brook is just at a single campus, not a part of a larger district, just kind of its own building. So just kind of paint a picture there for listeners.
Yeah, and our building is one of the only remaining pre-K to 8 ones like in the district. Normally it's kindergarten to 6 or pre-K to 5th. So we're one of the only ones that still have the junior high students in our building as well.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you for painting the picture and kind of talking a little bit about where both of you are. So with such a small school building that you are working in, does it ever seem difficult to provide great support without feeling like you're overbearing with the teacher, or like every single day that you're at that building, you're always seen by like there's a couple of teachers, and obviously for you being there 4 days a week, do you ever feel like there's
Stage 5 clinger?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like, they walk in the hallways, there you are. They look in your room, there you are, and everything like that. But how do you provide that support for the teachers without really smothering them?
So I think my answer and perspective is going to be a little bit different than Anna Marie's, just because I am there such a limited amount of time. So I was actually having a conversation prior to like our holiday break in December, and with teachers, and I was like, I've really only been here like a total of 15 days since August. So that's the equivalent of like, I don't know, 3 weeks of time of like a normal full-time coach. So I'm there pretty infrequently, just being there 1 day a week. So I could definitely in my coaching role spend every single Tuesday like making rounds and going and checking in on teachers on their plan bells and connecting with every one of them every single day. My building so small that would allow me to do that, but I do think that would be, like to your point, Justin, pretty overbearing, and maybe even like a point of anxiety for teachers that every Tuesday I was coming into their room, So being at a new to me school and being there so infrequently, I've really tried to work on clarifying my role over the time that I'm there, which has been like a pretty tall task, especially being there infrequently. So to avoid being like overbearing and smothering and always in their room all the time, I've tried to balance making myself available in the time I'm there with being always there,
right.
Every Tuesday. So for me, that looks like kind of varying up my support a little bit. So I try to be cognizant of kind of planning out when I'm going to be going around on plan bells, checking in and having informal conversations, which Tuesdays I'm going to be doing like learning walks, and I want to be like in the classroom and just observing and giving feedback. Which Tuesdays I want to meet with teams. So I try to do that once every 2 months to meet with like entire grade level teams. And then there are some days if I feel like I've just been really up in everybody's business a lot lately and I have the time and capacity, I will devote a little bit of time just to finding resources and sharing ideas like asynchronously via email, and checking in and making my presence known that way. So that way I'm not always taking up every plan bell every Tuesday I'm there, but I'm also not always in their instruction every Tuesday that I'm there in the classroom, or not always taking up every team meeting, but I'm kind of sprinkling my presence in different ways so that they know that I'm there. I'm clarifying my role. I'm making myself known, but without really like being overbearing.
I like that.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like my answer to this would have been very different 4 years ago when I started in this building. So I've been there a minute. My first year there, I would say that my main focus was kind of making it normal to see me popping into classrooms while building relationships with teachers, because it was a pretty veteran staff, really closely knit staff. Like I was very much the new person in the building. So I wanted to kind of establish those norms so that they weren't concerned or confused or anxious when they saw me in the back of the classroom. So I do feel like I spent a lot of time doing that. And like you said, 4 days a week is a lot of time in one building with such a small staff. But what that looks like for me now is like, I feel like so much has changed, right? I'm not doing that as much because I have more time dedicated to like coaching cycle meetings. Like because of the groundwork that I laid that first, that second, even that third year, now I am being more sought out by teachers rather than having to push in. And I also think a huge part of that is they know that they can call on me for, I mean, not absolutely anything, but like, you know, even just something as simple as like, I haven't had a bathroom break, like, can you come in, right? Like, or would love an extra set of hands for the science experiment that I'm doing today. So I'm getting into classrooms in much more organic ways and not so much just because like I kind of need to fill my schedule and I'm the new person on campus. So I just feel like it kind of varies from year to year when you're in such a small building, but the longer that I've been there, the more I feel like meaningful my time has been in classrooms, and like the more teachers are coming to me rather than me coming to them, trying to kind of fill the day a little bit.
Well, I'm glad that you said like kind of how long it took to, even in such a small staff, right? Like you're there 4 days a week. There's, 30 people to get to know. So not that much. And I just feel like, I really do feel like we as coaches individually, but sometimes admin as well, like looking at the role, don't give enough credit to like how long it really takes to build those relationships and establish that trust that it takes to invite a coach and work with the coach. So I'm glad that you just kind of highlighted that for listeners that might be kind of like, I feel like they're not letting me in. Like I can't get into classrooms. Why can't I do this? Or, we also need to, I try for our coaches when we meet with a new admin for a district where we're replacing a coach for the first time, I always say, like, expect the first year to just be a lot of relationship building. Like, don't expect a lot of, like, transformation in the classroom. But our coaches out there that are being hired by districts, don't have someone advocating that for them, may not, have that luxury. And I don't even know if it's always translated and heard. But just because I say it doesn't mean they're hearing it. But I think it takes a lot of time. So I'm glad you said that to help ease some, like, concerns that people might have about why they may not have gotten into classrooms yet. For sure. And I also was laughing. I feel like, Justin, when you were asking the question, I was like hearing that song, I always feel like
that's not what we want to do.
You do get those like deer in the headlights looks sometimes when you go into a room and teachers aren't expecting you, especially like early on, and they're not sure like why you're there. Till you can like build that relationship and they know that that's like normal, like you said.
Well, and kind of piggybacking off of that, Brooke. So we, pop into classrooms. It's good to survey the comfort level of the school and all the teachers. And from year 1 to now year 4, like we've had some staff turnover, not a huge number, but like relatively recently, I sent out that survey again and I made sure to like humorously but thoroughly explain like why I would be popping in. Like, I'm the hype person for this school. Like, you'll probably see yourself on Twitter if you're cool with that. Like, tried to keep it light, but also just really drive home the point that if this is new for you, having some kind of stranger-ish type person come into the classroom, like, it's not evaluative. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not like here to spy and report back. Like, this is very chill. This is very casual. And like, you may teach me something while I'm in there that I can pass along to another teacher. So I think just like making sure that that's crystal clear is also super helpful and not feeling like a stalker in the school.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. So I know, Anna Marie, this one's for you in particular, but I know that you faced a lot of teachers at the beginning who, like, a lot of it was overcoming the connotation of a coach. And because a coach is here, it does not mean that you're on your way out the door. So what are some strategies that you were able to employ to help overcome? Like, I'm not here as a spy for you, and I'm not going to go back and tell the admin I'm not evaluating. Like, what do you feel like was some of the big successful things that you were able to help do that?
I think that if I were able to observe something and then follow up with a teacher, not about like how they could improve something, but like offer them a resource that I thought would be really cool to tack on to what they're doing, or, even just happening to be there in the right moment where they were like, oh shoot, how do I do this? I can't remember, or which button do I click? And like being there, like in the moment to help was really meaningful to them. But like, if you listen to the podcast, you've heard me say this before, like I also just spent a lot of time talking to the teachers as just people. Like, you know, I've made the joke before on this podcast. I know, like, I would kind of stalk their desks in a weird way and just try and generate conversation around things that I saw that had nothing to do with my job, nothing to do with teaching, nothing to do with school. And then I found that once they felt comfortable with like me, Anna Marie, not like me, the coach, I felt like that was one less barrier, like to me getting into their classrooms in like a non-threatening way. Always giving compliments too when I saw something really great, or, you know, even if it were like kind of maybe hard or I didn't see something like totally amazing, maybe I could compliment like their classroom management style or a way that they redirected a student. And so like at one point I was even sending out like personalized postcards to each of the teachers. I made it a goal to send one to at least every person in the building during, I think I did it over like 2 quarters, and I saw them printed out and hanging up in people's classrooms. And I felt like that was also another way to show like, I'm not here to evaluate. I'm not like, I'm just here to like see what you're doing. Like I was a teacher, teaching's cool. I know how much goes into it. So like, here's a little like kudos to you for doing something that you may not have even realized that you were doing that is actually kind of hard to do and impressive, you know, like to someone who may not be a teacher, they may not recognize those things. So I would say those were kind of a few of my strategies, like trying to point out the positive, trying to really get to know them just as people first. And then if I happened to be there in the right time and they were struggling with something, like jumping in and helping if it was appropriate.
Yeah. Okay, another left field follow-up question for both of you. So I know in small schools, my first K-12 school I worked and taught in was a small private school. So I know that you start wearing a lot of hats that aren't necessarily falling under your role. So how have you found in such small buildings when everyone around you is typically wearing a lot of different hats, how have you been able to kind of protect your coaching role in that context?
I mean, honestly, I have not had that big of a problem in my little school as much as I did in my larger school.
Okay. We'll build on that experience regardless.
Yeah. So I think that in the school setting I'm at now, the coach that was there before me, Megan, who was on a previous episode, she did a fantastic job of clarifying her role. So the staff I work with now, like they really understand what a coach does. So I've tried to, in the transition, reinforce that in a couple of different ways. So in my email signature, I have my like why for coaching. It says like I'm here to help teachers become more confident with technology and design instructional experiences that open doors for students. So every like piece of communication that comes from me, it has not like they see my byline is not like I'm here to help you do technology. It's like very specifically tied to instruction. And then I also, in the feedback that I give, I try to be cognizant of always tying it to instruction first and not necessarily technology. Because I think that that's, while might not be necessarily a hat that gets put on me, a common like point of confusion I see a lot is that teachers perceive me as being there to like audit technology, and that's my purpose and that's my role. So I always try, kind of like Anne Marie said, like recognizing the craft of instruction and teaching, and celebrating like engagement and celebrating scaffolding and chunking of information. You know, like all of the key principles of instruction. In my larger district, there was often hats that were put on me because as an instructional coach, I was a very personable person. I tended to be the face that they saw a lot in their classroom, and kind of like Anna Marie said, I was more readily available than the technology department necessarily. So I would get a lot of requests for tech help and tech fixes. So if it was like impacting instruction, that would be maybe my exception to fixing it for them. Like if it was a student that needed help accessing a platform or, you know, whatever, and I had the power to make it happen so the student could learn, I would jump in and do that. But we worked in partnership, myself and then my tech coordinator out there, to develop some like an infographic that said who does what and who to contact where. And then we also help like coordinated with admin to push that out in their newsletters to communicate and clarify that role. But I've also, not something that I've done, but I've seen recently with a lot of the Virginia coaches that I've been working with lately, they've clarified their role in their email signature by saying like, for help with instruction, like book a spot on my Calendly. For help with a technology fix, click this link. And it like takes them to the help ticket straight from their email signature.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when the person goes to contact them, there's like a clear link to like who they should be following up with.
That's really smart.
That is brilliant. And Maria, I know this has been tough for you personally just because you're just such a people pleaser and want to help and when you have the power to do it. And there's a lot of shared hats at your building, I know.
Yeah. So you like read my mind. I had to start doing exactly the thing that I hate doing, which is being like, I'm so sorry I can't help with that, but like, here's who can. And similar to like what Brooke said, if it was something easy that was impacting instruction that I knew how to fix, that's the key there. Right. I'll do it. But lucky for me, unlucky for the teachers, there's a whole lot of problems I don't know how to fix. So saying, like,
got out of that one.
saying like, I don't know how to do this, or I'm so sorry I can't help is like not a lie. Like it's most of the time it's true. Yeah. Where I think it's gotten really tricky is, you know, we don't have a tech coordinator anymore, and our on-site person is no longer part of the building. They're like, the on-site techs are they're spread super thin across the district because it is a huge district. So I think what's been really hard is that because I'm also attached to a grant for these Verizon iPads, which is the VILS program, if you've never heard of it, I am like quote unquote allowed to give out iPads to new students who enroll. That's kind of like part of the gig that, you know, is outlined in this coaching position that has been funded through this grant. But it's hard for people to be like, then why can't you give them a laptop too? Right. And so, you know, I just kind of have had to try really hard to explain and just emphasize and like stay firm on that, because as soon as I give out that laptop, then
You're the laptop lady.
yeah, it's like it's gonna snowball. So it is hard, and I don't like. Sometimes I feel like I'm being difficult or not helpful when I have to say, no, I'm so sorry. But there's also been like a huge shift in the district, which has, I think, been a little frustrating for teachers, but has benefited me a little bit in that even if we did have an on-site tech, there's significantly less that they can do this year than like they've been able to do in the past. So like pretty much everything is like call the help desk, call the help desk, call the help desk, which is not what teachers like to hear, but it's just kind of the way that it's done now. So yeah, the other thing that I think has been tough is, you know, I'm in a building where we have so few students that we have one administrator. So a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of a sounding board for our admin because there really isn't anybody else in the building who's kind of like an impartial person who sees everything that goes on in the building. And so, you know, I'll be invited to do learning walks, which can be seen as kind of evaluative. And I'm always willing to participate, but I'm very mindful about what I'm saying and like the feedback I'm providing during those learning walks. Because I want to make sure that the teachers know that what I'm saying is true and that I'm not evaluative. And so I'm the one pointing out all the like super positive things. And again, those like little things that Brooke and I have both talked about that teachers do all the time that's just kind of like second nature, so that they can really believe what I'm saying is true and that I'm not there to evaluate. I'm there to just like build them up and highlight all the great things that they're doing, even when it's something like a learning walk that is not my idea, but that I've been asked to be involved with. So that's kind of like a different thing that I've been asked to participate in, but I'm trying to stay true to my role in like the way that teachers see my position in those different things that I'm asked to do, if that makes sense. So like keeping it positive, not being evaluative at all. Like I honestly, in those learning walks, I don't really give a whole lot of even like constructive feedback. I try and just like keep it positive because I don't want them to get confused. Like, well, she says she's not in here to evaluate, but now she's in here with like district people doing a learning walk. So that's just kind of another thing that, like, another hat that I've kind of had to learn how to wear in the right way, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside and take a sponsor break. We'll be right back. Calling all instructional technology coaches, Forward Edge has launched a new hub for coaches to find strategies and resources to use for their coaching. The EDU Coach Network provides a place for instructional coaches to come together for coach-specific professional development, building a community, and finding mentorship moving through the school year. The network provides a place to casually seek resources or join in with book clubs, Twitter chats, webinars, and workshops, along with much more. Join the EDU Coach Network by going to educoachnetwork.com and join the coach community today.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers in learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges.
All right, folks, welcome back into this episode here with us on the Restart Recharge podcast. Justin and Katie here. We also have Brooke and Anna Marie joining us, talking about everything that goes into how they coach in a small building with a small amount of staff. So, Katie, what you got next?
Yeah, so curious. You both have kind of alluded to it a little bit, but, Justin kind of talked about not wanting to be the creeper who's always lurking around the corner with the same people over and over. So I'm curious, how do you feel where you're both not in these districts where there's constantly like a district event going on or like district-wide initiatives going on necessarily, but with your small staff, how are you, I'm sure you're kind of pulled in a little bit of finding the balance with teachers versus like showing your value across the building, and knowing that sometimes our teachers just need a break, but where do you feel like that balance is to really show your value? And I guess this question would be a little bit more leaning toward like showing your value to the admin or the decision makers kind of above you.
So I have a weekly standing meeting with my admin. And I think that that's really important, especially with how much time I'm there and how small of a staff I'm working with. So it may sound like it's kind of overkill, but even if we don't have something like on the agenda, because I make an agenda for every single meeting, if we don't have something super pressing, I always make sure to talk about positive things that I've seen in the building since the last time we spoke. And a lot of times those are things that I've been involved with. So I'm not outright saying, like I helped this teacher with fill in the blank, but like at this point, I think my admin is kind of able to read between the lines. So like right now specifically, I have a spot on our agenda where I update them on all the things that I'm working on with all the teachers that are currently signed up for my coaching cycles. So that's 7 teachers right now, which is the most I've ever had. So if you're in a small school and you're like, oh my gosh, it took 4 years to get there. But I think that's a really great way of proving my worth or my value by looping them into things that I'm doing with teachers. And then also just, I think, kind of being eyes and ears in classrooms when they can't always be there to highlight things that I'm not involved with that teachers are doing that's really great. Like we have an art teacher who did a really great project where she had students make buttons about Sailor Park and write a little note about it. And then they mailed them all over the country and all over the world. And she put it all on a website. And so like I make sure to shout that out when we have like new submissions and just make sure that admin's aware that that's still going on because they have like admin has so much on their plate regardless of how big the school is. There's so much going on. So I would say those weekly meetings are key for me and reminding and keeping the work that I'm doing at like top of mind.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my school, like Katie said, the it being like my first year with this new staff, has been largely relationship building. So it's been a lot of just trying to get into classrooms to work on projects. So that's been like a big focus. But as far as like communication with admin and making sure that they know like the value that I can bring during all this like season of relationship building and what might look like small talk a lot of the time. I sat down with my admin at the very beginning of the year, that being two people, the principal and the assistant. They are the two ladies who run the show, and just asked them, like, based on what they knew about their staff, where they wanted student learning to go in this year, like where did they want to see transformation in the classroom, what were areas that they felt like could be improved, what was already going really well. So we kind of came together and developed like a focus for me for the year jointly, and that was making learning more active. So they were seeing a lot of both passive use of technology and passive consumption of information in the classroom. So all year long, I am focused on helping teachers make instruction more active and learning more active. And so in my weekly newsletter or monthly newsletters that I send out, every month has a focus. So this month is creativity, sparking more creativity in the classroom under that umbrella of active learning. In my weekly newsletter or monthly newsletters, I outline like what the topic is, 3 like tools that they could use to support creative learning and creative products in the classroom, and inspiration from other schools with creativity, and then maybe even some like teacher shout outs if I've seen anything like that falls under that bucket. So my admin and the whole staff like can constantly see how like the professional learning that they're engaging in and my conversations with them like are tracked to that like larger goal that we set at the beginning of the year. So that helps, I think, for my admin to see that I'm like continuously working to like push their goal and mission forward in the building. But beyond that, kind of going back to the part of your question about like balancing teachers who might like need a break versus like making sure that my value is established with a small staff. It's been, like I said, a kind of a mission of mine to get into classrooms more and establish myself as a resource in the classroom. So part of that balance for me has been like offering to teach the tech in a scaffolded way, kind of like a I do, we do, you do throughout the day, which then has been like trickled up to admin. So recently we did a Canva project creating original images where I taught the 5th graders how to do that. Then their teacher like taught the next class, and then the teacher was like talking to admin about how they created this really cool project. So I would say like finding opportunities to work closer with teachers has been kind of like a blessing in disguise of a small building, I think, because I'm not pulled to serve like 200 teachers. I can really spend a lot more time with the 29 that I have. I've also, like I said, tried to just gather and share inspiration and ideas with teachers as I see appropriate, so that they're like constantly getting like little ideas and nuggets from me, but I'm not always maybe in their face or in their classroom too, to show like the value of working with me and like ideas for working with me.
Yeah. I think that's good because I also think, at least in my experience and what I have observed of small schools, that are not necessarily like tied to a much larger like district initiative, is that like not only do they wear a lot of hats, they seem a little like, I don't know, kind of in their own world sometimes, right? Like maybe there's not enough funding to send them to conferences, or there's just not awareness of, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that's good that you're like bringing them those ideas. I also love your example of working with the admin to drive their goals forward. I think that's a really good example for any coach, regardless of size of the building or district.
Yeah. And I'd say like be obnoxious about it. Like my PD on the potty says like we're getting active. It has like a little bulk up muscle on it. My happy hours have a little bulk up muscle. Like we're getting active. That's like the slogan. So like everywhere my professional learning is happening or PD that I'm offering, it's like tied back to that goal that the admin like sat with me.
I love that. We I hope I don't butcher this. Like quote example, but we've been having a lot of conversation like just around like vision and direction, and I think schools are notorious for that. Like if you would ask everyone like what's the vision or the goal, like what's the initiative we're working on, like how many answers would you get across the building? And it's kind of like you need that, like you need the person, everyone's just kind of like out in the woods, like going in a certain direction. They don't actually have like the compass to know where to go. But if you have someone like climb up the tree and look ahead, like you need that person saying like, we're going this way. Then everyone knows like what way to march in the woods, kind of a deal. So I like that you're just, I like that concept of like be in their face about it. So everyone knows like, what is the goal? Like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah,
There's so much coming at them throughout the day.
My favorite answer when you ask like what are the initiatives or the goals, they're like, well, we have a strategic plan somewhere, I'm sure I can find it. Which is like, I don't even know where the goals are, let alone like what's on the goal sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So we're obviously not working toward those.
but I think that one of like the
but-
powerful ways that like an instructional coach can support like that vision, kind of getting off track here, is like we might not set the vision for our school, no matter how big or how small, but we can definitely like put a brand behind it and put our like brand our work behind it in a fun and engaging way. And Anna Marie is like fabulous at this.
I was going to say we have a brand expert here with us.
You guys are being
folks.
nice.
I think you were on a former
not.
podcast, right? About marketing yourself.
Well, yeah, I like it. I like doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Be shy. We'll talk about it later.
Good one, Katie.
Thank you. I've colored Justin speechless.
That doesn't normally happen. All right, well, let's just keep this train rolling here. It is time for a certain part of the show, which is our top 3 tips.
Don't we have a button for that? The drum?
No,
Maybe?
every
Or
time
like
I hit it, I hit
applause?
the music.
Oh,
There it is.
Yes.
that was a lucky guess. Could have been jazz music.
Let her
for all we would know.
see.
All right, let us see for
applause.
clapping. All right, so cool. Yeah, top 3 tips for finding the balance in a small school building.
Oh, these are always so hard for me. Okay, so I would say number 1 is trust your gut. If you feel like you're in the classroom too much or starting to cross that line into like creeper territory, like listen to your gut. You probably are, right? So like it's okay to dial that back.
Creeper dark.
Trust yourself. And then I would also say, you know, if you're a coach in a small building for the first time ever, it's okay to take the time to lay the groundwork to build those relationships. I can promise that the rest will come with time. And then I would say number 3 would just be, you know, don't take on too much that will confuse your role, because I think that can be very hard. And obviously some of your guys' questions were directed at exactly that. It can be hard to say no, and it can be easy to confuse teachers about what you're actually there to do. So just like be very careful about taking on too much.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So my first one is to, if you're at a small school or working with small population, or really just in general, if you're finding yourself like not super busy, is to not wait for requests to fall in your lap. I think that there's always like a fair share of early adopters in any building, and those are certainly great people to work with, and often they'll come to you with ideas. But there's really great teachers out there that just don't know what you can provide for them or how you can support them. So look for ideas, look for inspiration, share it, offer to try something new. That's been like one of my favorite like starters is saying like, I noticed that your class is super chatty. Like they are just so engaged in this content. I found this like really cool like back channel discussion tool. I'm not sure how it would go. Would you mind if I tried it out like with your kids to kind of like, you know, see how it works? So don't wait for like teachers to request to work with you. Find ways that might attract them. And then my second tip is to burn the candle at both ends. This is maybe a luxury of working in a small school, is that you can work pretty closely with teachers, but you also have the time and space to work pretty closely with students too. So you can offer to teach the tech and to pull the training wheels off as you go, so the teacher eventually becomes independent with it. But you can also just like stop in the hallway and chat with kids about like their work and like what they like about school. I know Anna Marie does this all the time, and
It's like one of my favorite things.
yeah, and you become so much closer to the instruction and to what the needs of the school are when you talk to kids. So not always a luxury you have if you're in like a large school district, but if you're in a smaller school or working with a smaller staff or just have extra time on your hand, burn the candle at both ends. So work with your teachers and the students. And then my third tip is to embrace more intimate and sustained projects. So if you know that a certain unit's coming up, you might have the capacity to like be there for every step of the way in the unit, and really work closely with the teacher, almost as like a co-teacher throughout that process. So there's nothing wrong with spending a significant amount of time with one teacher, as long as you aren't ignoring the rest of the staff, and you're looking for ways to work with everybody. But working in a small district, you really are kind of freed up to embrace those more intimate projects.
Awesome. Thanks for those tips.
Yeah, those are both really good. All I can think of now, we keep talking about the different themes that we have stuck in our head, and you might enjoy this one because you like The Office, right?
I sure do.
I think about the one where like Dwight's playing the whack-a-mole with like Isabel, and then she leaves, and like Angela's just like right there behind him. Like, don't be like that. Don't just be like awkwardly just like they turn like, oh my god, they scared me, because like, what are you doing there?
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully there's other Office fans out there.
Picture it in my
Sure
head.
there are.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, awesome. Anna Marie and Brooke, thank you both for joining us here today on this episode.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So, for next episode, we are going to flip the script on today's episode, and we're going to be talking about what it's like to manage a large school district with multiple buildings and large geographical area. So we'll have a special guest on for that one to join. Rachel Porter, one of our other coaches. We'll have Kami Kanakins that's going to be on with us too, to talk about how that we recorded earlier on that blew our mind on how large that school district is. So that's going to be a really good episode, and we'll talk a little bit more about the flip of that, what it's like to be in a large school district.
Yeah, so be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts. I know on Spotify, if you go to the podcast, Restart Recharge, you can rate it right at the top, or you can click the little 3 dots after you've listened, and then you can provide a rating, and that'll help people find us. I promised I would give instructions on another platform besides Apple Podcasts eventually. So there you go, Spotify listeners. And follow us on all the social media at RRCoachCast.
And feel free to reach out to us and let us know if there's any topics that you would like us to discuss on any of those social media platforms. We'll be happy to talk with you.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.
That was
What are
tricky
the
to
other
hold it.
ones? Oh.
That's the one I thought I was going to push.
Oh, this next one plays for a long time.
Yeah.
And I accidentally always press this one, and then I try
then
to
you
press
just have
it
to wait
again.
it out.
No, I try to press it again, thinking I can stop it, and then it like plays it again. It restarts and restarts until it stops.
Do you guys remember like middle school when we had like the headphones that went like over your top like that? But to be cool, you would like flip them. So then
yeah.
you would have the headpiece
beard.
would be underneath. Yeah, like a beard.
Oh,
and
or that's, yeah.
like you're too cool to have them like fully positioned. Up
Like
there.
those blue ones, right? Like the.
Or like one ear on, one ear off.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
you're
that was rough.
like I'm kind of doing my work, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
I'm too cool. For
Maybe
it.
not. We know you were doing your work.
I have the capability to hear you, but I'm probably not.
Awesome. Okay.
Cool.
Lovely episode.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yep.
No, I think you fixed it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Do you want to switch back? Is this your lucky mic?
No. I mean, it is, but no. I'm just going to be really bad at this podcast.
But when it hit hard.
I'm not going to be as on this one because it won't be my lucky mic.
And
But
when
it's
I need to
okay.
mute myself, I push.
So you'll be number 2.
2.
What do I do?
You're number 1 still. in our hearts and our
We
minds.
need to take it from
You're 4.
from the top.
Nah, there's nothing. No change. Oh,
What is that?
it's you.
No. Do you
It
ever
bothers
count
me
on?
that it's only 1, 2, 3, 4. Cheerleading's a 5, 6, 7, 8
Oh, that
kind
would be a
of
hard
sport.
transition.
Yeah.
That's going on the
Not
blooper
something
reel.
I-
All right, so Katie, you are 1.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Anna Marie, you're now 2, and then Brooke, you're 3.
That was not confident.
There was a hesitation.
Okay, so I'm 4. So
Uh-huh.
3.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Repeat. 1,
2, 3.
4.
Okay. Now, more than likely, you two won't even need to meet yourself, so you probably don't even need to like
Crisscross.
touch
Yeah.
it. But okay. All right. All right.
is a
I
wild
feel like
ride
one of us
already.
is gonna just we're gonna just be muted before we start. But
I know.
all right.
Okay. I'm taking it from the top.